Now to our regular look at the week ahead in finance, and joining us is Scott Phillips, Chief Investment Officer at Motley. Scott, good evening to you. Now, on Wednesday, the Reserve Bank's Head of Domestic Markets will deliver a speech. What can we expect to hear?
Georgie, good evening. This is going to be a fascinating speech. It is the topic of the day, of the year, and it really should be. It is, of course, climate change and talking about the risks of climate change to the financial system. Of course, we know a lot of company CEOs and boards have been paying closer and closer attention, thinking about the risks to their businesses. In this case, we're talking about the whole financial system, something we should, of course, be very, very mindful of, and fascinated to see what we hear on Wednesday.
Indeed. Meanwhile, petrol prices, they are starting to ease at the bowser finally. I'm just wondering, is this a sign we're ahead of the inflation curve, do you think?
That's a great question. You know, I desperately hope so, Georgie. Yeah, it's the same as me. I mean, I saw petrol price $1.55 a litre for unleaded just this morning. That's probably a good dollar, maybe more, since the highs we saw of $2.60, $2.70 not that long ago. So yes, of course, at the pump, and frankly, with rates going up, we all don't mind paying a little bit less for petrol. But as you rightly also point out, the inflation story is not just petrol prices. It's the oil price more broadly. It is so important for transportation right across the country. And of course, it's a feedstock for things like plastics and other things. And so, yeah, as it comes down, it is the thing that greases the global economy. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we might see some downward pressure on inflation as a result.
Yeah, all right. Now, we are halfway through the earnings season for businesses. What's the outlook for corporate Australia, Scott?
Yeah, really good question. So the ASX, most companies report their earnings during August, and we are just over halfway through that. The news has been pretty positive thus far, probably better, I think, on average than the market was expecting. As I said, we're going into some tougher economic times in the second half of this year, but the good news is for the year just finished, the financial year ending June 30, many, perhaps most, ASX companies had really strong profit results. And what that suggests is, yes, the RBA is cooling the economy. Yes, there are some tougher times, but we're going into it from a very strong position. We know unemployment at 3.5% is good for us as workers, but it seems like it's also been a good time for businesses, and hopefully there's some cushioning there for that.
And how's this affected the ASX and investors?
Yeah, that's the key one. Tomorrow morning is going to be a tough morning. We know, of course, the US market fell meaningfully on Friday night, our time. The ASX futures, I should say, look like a fall of about 0.4% tomorrow. Kind of mirrors the outlook from most companies, to your question. A lot of companies saying, look, the last year was great. Trading conditions, depending on the business, starting to soften. So maybe some softer economic conditions and a softer start to the market here tomorrow.
All right, a busy week ahead. Scott Phillips, always good to chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Georgie.